You are about to enter a world of imagination. A world where battles are fought on hex maps and grids, whether virtually or in person. Dice are cast, swords are clashed, and even a little bit of ingenuity can solve a lot of problems. From power gamers to role players, all are welcome here. Hell, even 4th edition has a seat at the table. But Magic the Gathering, you get the little kitty booth. With dice in hand and a heart full of adventure, I'd like to welcome you all to this Polyhedra Paradise. What is up, everybody? On a very, very special edition of Polyhedra Paradise Live. Up late with the Dungeon Master. Tonight, we are going to have our exclusive interview about the future of Dungeons & Dragons in TV with the one, the only, Mr. Rawson Marshall Thurber. And man, what a conversation we had. We laughed, we cried, we waxed prosthetic, we waxed nostalgic. It was a great conversation, and you guys will get to see it shortly. But first things, we're going to take and do a little bit of house cleaning first. A little bit of stuff I want to talk about as far as stuff on the channel goes. So let me turn this down a little bit. Let me know if the music's too loud, guys. So first, I'd like to remind everybody that we have coming up our second annual 24-hour live stream to benefit Take This Mental Health Awareness in Gaming. That's right. You're going to stare at my face for 24 straight hours, and you're going to love it. We're going to have a lot of mini games. We're going to have 2 4-hour blocks of one-shots. We're going to have guests on. We're going to have an awful lot of fun, and we're going to raise a lot of money for charity. And that's the most important thing. And hopefully we're gonna help out some people. The link to that, the link to the Tiltify program is in the link tree, which is pinned to the top of the chat. Oh, I gotta read this. Mike says a transformer robot works into a bar and asks for new blend of oil, the hard seltzer oil, like Dooley or White Claw. The bartender explained they don't serve those fancy drinks here. The closest thing can serve is Light Gear. Light Gear. Mike always with the dad jokes. But anyway, so yes, the link to the Tiltify fundraiser is in the link tree, which is pinned to the top of the chat. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. That is gonna be April 15th and 16th. I actually have one of my good friends is gonna be hosting with me. I'm reserving announcing that until he's 100% confirmed. But I'm really looking forward to that event. Also, if you follow the Linktree link and you like lore videos, we have our lore channel, which has 2 videos right now, getting ready to release the 3rd, which is the Ghost Cat. That's doing really well. It's sitting at 35 subs right now, and I hope to grow that a little bit more. I've been pretty preoccupied with getting this here video out, and so I'm a little behind on releasing the Ghost Cat, but I'll get to that soon. So if you wanna pop over there and subscribe to that channel, that would help out greatly. A little bit of backstory. I think I've talked about it before. Rawson Thurber had been announced that he was going to spearhead the new Dungeons & Dragons TV series, and I reached out to him, and he agreed to an interview. So this is the night you guys are going to get to see it. In fact, let me cut the music here, guys. So I'm going to cut the music. Yeah, so he sat down with me on Wednesday. We had a wonderful conversation, at least I think it was, and I learned a lot. So it was very eye-opening. We had a good conversation, but you know what? I don't want to oversell it. So if everybody's ready, you guys ready to watch this? So I'm gonna switch screens here, and I'm gonna turn it over to myself and Mr. Thurber. Guys in the chat, let me know if it's too loud or too low. But guys, sit back and enjoy the interview with myself and Mr. Thurber. I'll be here in chat with you guys talking back and forth. And if you're ready, let's get to it. Our guest tonight is a graduate of Union College, where he founded the Visual Arts Landscape Club in order to make his first short film, Palaver. He then went to USC, entering and graduating from the Peter Stark program for filmmaking. Rawson would then go on to write and direct Terry Tate Office Linebacker, which would be picked up by Reebok and shown during the Super Bowl. That's actually my personal introduction to his work. In 2004, he would release his first feature film, Dodgeball. Having proven himself behind the camera and on the page, he would go on to direct 5 more feature films: Mysteries of Pittsburgh, which is an adaptation of the Michael Chabon book, We Are the Millers, Central Intelligence, Skyscraper, and most recently, the most watched movie ever on Netflix, Red Notice. He's currently in production on the big screen adaptation of the Tom Clancy book turned video game, The Division, and he has been announced as the man to bring my favorite IP of all time to the screen, Dungeons & Dragons, and he's here today to talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rawson Marshall Thurber. Mr. Thurber, thanks so much for coming on today, sir.
Oh, Jason, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. What a lovely introduction. I don't know very many people who can mention Palaver or visual landscape artist. I don't know where you get this secret information, but that is exactly true.
The age of information in the internet. I can't tell you my secrets.
That's spooky, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll try to stay out of spooky territory, I promise. I know you prefer green underwear, but, you know, boxers are brief. That's still up for debate.
Yeah, no comment. No comment.
Is there anything I missed in that introduction? Anything? Hopefully I got most of it right.
It was all right. It was scary, accurate, and suspiciously kind. So we'll see what happens here.
First of all, congratulations on the success of Red Notice. How does that feel? What does that feel like?
Oh, so incredibly rewarding. We worked so hard on that movie. It was the hardest picture I've ever had to make because of COVID. We were about halfway through shooting the film when we had to shut down for 6 months because of the pandemic. And then we came back and had to shoot the remaining 2 or 3 months under, pretty strict NBA style bubble quarantine. And there was there were no vaccines at that time, and nobody had ever mounted a production during a pandemic before. So there was no roadmap. And we just, through dint of effort and collaboration and hard work, we managed to pull it off. But it was incredibly hard to do, and then to see it be received in the way it was from the viewing audience was just staggering. It's my first streaming film, and hopefully not my last, because I had such a great time. But what was interesting to me about it, as opposed to theatrical, because my previous 5 films had all been theatrically released, but when something goes up on Netflix, or I suppose other streamers, it's an instant tidal wave of reaction, because Mr. Netflix hits a big red button and it all uploads to the service, and everybody can watch it instantly. And I have never gotten that many phone calls, emails, texts, responses to anything I've done. And so Netflix is so big. More people watched Red Notice in its opening weekend than had watched all of my previous films during their entire theatrical runs combined. That's how big Netflix is. And how big that audience is. And I'll finish by just saying that, if your goal as a storyteller is to tell your story to the maximum amount of people, but there is no other game in town other than Netflix.
That idea now that people can watch well-produced movies and top of the line crafted media right from the comfort of their own home, that's kind of like a dream for a lot of people and a lot of filmmakers. And I find myself watching taking a chance a lot more on things that I wouldn't before if I had to go to the theaters.
Of course, it's a completely different value proposition, right? Like it's the idea of getting in your car, driving to the theater, paying for a sitter sometimes, paying for parking, paying for the ticket, paying for overpriced concessions, etc. It's a big ask for most people, especially families. Whereas you can, if you have Netflix, you can, or similar, you can sit on your couch and watch it. It's a totally different experience, of course, in the theater, but it's a totally different value proposition.
Actually, on a personal note too, and don't take this the wrong way, that's how I came to some of your other movies. Like I didn't see Skyscraper in the theaters, but I watched it at home, and man, that's underrated.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that, surprisingly. So we're going to circle back around to some of the other movies, assuming that we have some time, because I know you're limited today. But what was bigger? Like the reaction for you, what was bigger? The reaction to Red Notice or getting to see yourself in Madden?
What a good question, Jason. Well, there's nothing cooler than Madden.
Right.
Just full stop. I'm a huge sports nerd and a comedy geek, but I've played football in high school and a little bit in small level college. Love football. Play Madden all the time. Except for this last version was not great, so I kind of didn't really play. But that was being in Madden is without question the coolest thing that's ever happened to me as it relates to sort of perks of being in Hollywood and in this business. So I probably Madden. I hate to say it. It's probably.
And you were wide receiver, right? D3.
How do you know this stuff? Yes. Well, in high school, I played quarterback and defensive back, and then in college, I played wide receiver. But I was a slightly above average high school athlete and a slightly below average Division III college football player. So after my freshman year at Union College in Schenectady, New York, I realized that, I'm probably not going to go pro. So, a 6 foot 100 and whatever it was, 70-pound dude who runs like a 4.8 something 40 is not going anywhere at that position. So I hung him up and then got involved in so many other things that were fascinating to me. And that's part of what led me to my career now.
Yeah. There's linebackers that can do that now, right?
There are linemen. There are 350-pound D linemen that would have smoked me. It's unbelievable how big and fast these guys are.
So talking about sports, there's this stigma of nerds who are into role-playing games and into other things can't be a fan of sports and vice versa. I mean, obviously that's not the case, but having said that, knowing you're into sports, what are the Niners going to do with Garoppolo this year?
Oh God, I'm so glad we're talking about this. Look, I have a lot to say. I think the Niners front office has sort of outfunked themselves. And they're sort of stuck holding a hand they don't want based on how they played the cards that they dealt to themselves. I have no idea if Trey Lance is going to be the next Patrick Mahomes or not. My guess is not, because there's really only one Patrick Mahomes and he's in Kansas City. But also I thought they gave away way too much capital to get Trey. And I'm a Jimmy fan. He's so handsome. It's hard to root against a guy that dreamy.
He's one of the sexiest men in football.
It's unbelievable, right? And so he's so hot right now.
The jawline just doesn't.
And so I don't know what they're gonna do, but Deshaun going to the Browns, I think maybe it's a play to the Texans, but I think the real issue is everybody in the league knows they're stuck, and so they're not going to get a good price. And then what are you going to do? You're going to pay $25 million, $27 million for a backup quarterback? Like, it's a nightmare, and it's a nightmare of their own design. Yeah,
and it seemed like when the front office showed their hands, like, why should anybody move at this point for them? We have our own issues here in Baltimore. So
Lamar is so good.
He is, but I'm waiting. If the rumors are he won't even return phone calls or emails, and come on, just like, I know he had a down year last year, and I know he probably doesn't want to sign a contract on the back of a down year, but
two things. One is you guys have Greg Roman running the offense.
Yeah.
He run the Niners offense when we had Cap, and he's a mad scientist, and he's such a great fit for Lamar. But also, I heard, maybe this is not right, but Lamar has his own. He represents himself.
He does. Yes.
And as that old saying goes, that anybody who represents himself has a fool for a client, and I wish him all the luck.
I love that. Can you make a call for me? Can you tell him that? I mean, you have to have some pull, right?
Yeah. Well, we're both in Madden. I think he'll probably take my call.
Yeah. Oh, were you mad when your rating was so low?
Yes.
I meant to ask that.
Yes, I'm mad. I'm like a 36. Like, how dare they?
Have you seen the videos though, where people will put together a team and they will try to win the Super Bowl with you, a quarterback?
Yeah, I have friends who send them to me often, and every so often I'll watch them. But I'll say this: like, I have no problem with my speed rating or whatever, but I can still throw the ball 55 yards. So like, that can't be. I mean, I have to have like a Drew Brees arm at least. And I mean, it's outrageous.
That was well.
Can we talk about football and Madden for the rest of the
I
hour?
mean, we can, but I think I'd lose like 90% of the people who watch the show, and that's preciously
you can edit all this out.
That's preciously little anyway. Oh no, it's staying in. It's definitely staying in. Well, so yeah, let's get to RPGs and stuff like that, because we're about the same age, I believe. You're 47, or I know a lady never says her age, but
I couldn't care less. 47.
Yes, I just turned 45, so we kind of grew up in the same area. So what was your first experience with RPGs? Did you play them as a kid, or?
Oh yeah. I was well, my first experience with a role-playing game was Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to say 8, 9, something like that. I can't quite remember. And I was playing with my older brother and his friends, and I didn't quite understand anything, but I had the monster manual and I had the player's handbook. I think second edition, might have been first. I can't remember. And I still have a vivid memory of the first moment that our party was attacked. We were camping on the bend of a river, and that night we were attacked by lizard folk who came out of the water. And I remember the first time I rolled to hit, and I didn't roll a natural 20, obviously, but I rolled, I don't know, whatever. I can't remember what I rolled, but I hit, and I actually felled the lizard folk that I was squared off against. And I jumped out of my chair and ran around the table, and I was so excited. But I'd never experienced anything that caught my imagination in the same way, from the simple board games I was playing. Some of the early video games I was obsessed with, but not in the same way as you have when you play role-playing games, where you create this image in your mind, this story between your ears. Mm-hmm. And nothing more powerful than that. So that was Dungeons and Dragons was my sort of gateway into the role-playing game universe, which then extended to Palladium stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Rifts and Recon. And I would play with my buddies. I had four buddies in high school, junior high and high school, and we would play. And very, very quickly, I became the GM, not the DM, of course, but the GM. And I had to, and it's really how I learned to tell story, and it's why I'm doing the job that I'm doing today. I wouldn't be here had it not been for Dungeons and Dragons, and had it not been for role-playing games. I had to come up with story that would keep my friends interested and focused for Friday, Saturdays, that we would play together, or for Saturday, Sundays, or whatever. And then I would start to fashion stories that I knew would particularly challenge my friends and their personalities in different ways. And it was really an incredible school of narrative, where you're trying and failing to keep attention and keep drama. It was just absolutely something I loved. And then after I think, as I got later in high school, I hung up, I hung up my bag of dice, started driving a car, and started, chasing girls and all that stuff. And then, but then I would always game. Video games started to take over a little bit more than role playing, and then I got into MMOs, which is sort of a version of role playing. Mm-hmm. And got deep into those and loved those, and still do. I played the D&D DDO, right? And enjoyed that. It was fun to kind of transfer your paper and pencil thoughts to the online world, and really, really enjoyed that, and played that for quite some time. And that's pretty much it.
So the D&D one, I never got into that because I pretty much stayed pen and paper, or pencil and paper, my whole life. Oh, yeah. until I didn't play so much. So I never got a chance to experience Dungeons and Dragons online. But what was it, like, circling back around to like some of your earlier experiences? When you started playing as a kid, what was was there what was the reception to you amongst your friends? I mean, how were you as a kid? Were you a loner, or were all of your friends into playing, or did you experience any of the sort of side eye that came along with tabletop games at the time in the early '80s?
No, I never really got side eye, and I was always, I had friends in all different sort of groups in junior high and high school, from, the kids who played sports to the kids who were in theater. It was never, I don't know, I never really had a sort of that Breakfast Club caste system where I went to school, and yeah, I mean, I found like the four buddies that like to do what I like to do, and we loved it, and we played it together, and I think as we got a little older and were able to drive and go do stuff on our own, I think we all got interested in spending our Friday nights, out at the Safeway parking lot with all the other high school kids. And it just sort of naturally kind of paused, I suppose.
Yeah, I find with a lot of people who have been gaming since a young age, you hit this period where, yeah, that's something you've been doing for so long that, all these other things are interesting to me. Like for me personally, like I played a lot when I was young, and then sort of like towards the back end of high school, I actually stopped playing because I moved down into Baltimore City, and then I got into it with a new group of friends, started playing a lot of sports, and that, while it was always still there, I didn't game as much actively, but I still always had my books. I read them constantly, and I would always still create in my head because, like you said, it is that creative juice that being a DM or a GM, that's you. There's nothing better, at least for me, and you probably felt the same way, is to create the world and present it to people and have like an instant reaction to it. Like that is the quickest feedback system, where you're sitting down and telling a story in real time to your players, and you can see their reactions and you're modifying as you go. It really sharpens that creative blade. And that, I think that transfers a lot into later on into life, and like being able to read a room, being able to sort of stop on a dime and change your approach to a specific situation. There's so much that it leads to later in life. So at least in my opinion.
I agree more. And also, like when you're a GM or a DM and you've created this whole story, and it means, it relies on your players going down the right-hand corridor, and they all decide to go down the left-hand corridor, and you're like, yeah, but that's blocked, or you figure out how to fix it, right? Because the players will always surprise you with how they solve a problem or how they don't. Like there's a plainly obvious solution to you because you have all the answers behind your shield, right? Behind your DM screen, and you're like, I can't believe how dumb these guys are. Like, come on, guys. And trying to figure out how the balance of making it hard but not too hard, or when they try to do something that's out of bounds in terms of your narrative, like how do you bring it back without sort of to mix my metaphors, without kind of putting up an invisible wall that you bump into in a game. Yeah,
without railroading them in it, like without grabbing them by the collars and dragging them over here, and then there's always that question. You start sort of self-evaluating. Is like, is there something I'm not doing? Like, are they not? Am I not getting something across? And then
I've always felt like that part, blame the audience, is not the way to go, right? Blame the players is not the way to go. The only thing you can do is look at your part of it, and how do you communicate more clearly or set the scenario up in a way that's that drives the result that you need for your next piece, that naturally drives it that way. And that I learned so much from that.
Yeah, I've always have players who their sole mission in any campaign will be to completely go off book. I love it though.
They do it. I mean, I don't mind it if it's natural, but like if it's just to be a fly in the ointment, if it's just to be a pain in the ass, I'm just like, come on, man. We're all here to play a game. Like, why do you gotta anyways.
Yeah. Well, no, this is one thing that's always bothered me is the combative players. They have to realize this isn't a game of DM versus player. No. Like I'm not here trying to kill you, because it would be so easy for me to do that. Yeah. There's no chance that a player actually wins in that equation. So we're all here to have fun and enjoy this collaborative storytelling experience at the table. Let's just to help me out a little bit. Throw me a bone.
Well said, Jason.
Oh, thank you. So did you watch the cartoon at all when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. Did I watch the cartoon?
Sure.
Hold on. I watched the cartoon. Are you kidding? Hold on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hank the Ranger, come on now.
Man, that's fantastic. What else you got back there on your shelves?
I can't tell you.
All right. I won't ask anymore.
I got everything.
Computer, zoom, enhance. Zoom, enhance.
So yeah, man. Yeah, love the cartoon. You know, it's a little cringy looking back.
Yeah.
But you know, there's some nice nostalgia to it, and yeah, I love the cartoon. I devoured it.
Those 80s cartoons, they were great at the time, and I love them. But I tried to go back. I tried to go back and watch some. I tried to go back and watch He-Man. I got like 5 minutes. I'm like, all right, I'll just please live in my memory.
That's what I was gonna say. Know? Well, and also here's Voltron right here, and I loved Voltron as a kid, and still love to this day.
That was one of the first things I can remember begging my parents for. They had the set, all 5 lions, and they were metal, and it was $80. I was like, please. I bought it and I loved it.
Exact same thing, Jason.
Yeah.
And I combined my birthday present and my Christmas present, and my mom, because we weren't $80 toy rich.
No, yeah.
We were poor, but we didn't have that kind of money in 1982 or whatever it was. And anyways, Santa hooked me up. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. It's nice to hear that you have this experience as a, for lack of a better word, geek. You know, as a kid. Yeah, that's for sure. That's fantastic. Okay, so I have to ask this only because I know you directed Vince Vaughn in Dodgeball, and he's obviously a known D&D enthusiast. Did the subject ever come up on set, or?
It never did. Only like what came up on set was Vince and I both love video games, and we love football video games. So we started playing NCAA together after rap. Mm-hmm. We created our own team, and we played NCAA together, both on the same side, and that was fun. We did that during Dodgeball. But I haven't talked to him about D&D yet.
That's a shame what happened to NCAA over money, that they don't make it anymore. Just
heartbreak. But I hope they're going to figure out how to bring it back. But that was the game that I played until they canceled it, and then me and all my gamer buddies switched over to Madden. It was, NCAA was just a chef kiss of a game. And Madden has some stuff that's great about it, but they need to figure it out over there.
When I would
not great right now.
When I would get together on video game nights, that's what we would do. Me and my friend Mark, we would do first of all we'd play some D&D, and then we'd do one-on-one, and then we'd go switch over and play NCAA, and then he had his team and I created my team, and we would go through the draft and everything, and it was so much fun. But I could play Madden as a single sitting game. I couldn't run through seasons. I just preferred NCAA. And
me too. Who's your team? Who's your college team?
Akron.
Really?
Akron Zips, yes, and his for no reason. I just liked him, and he used the Redhawks, Miami of Ohio Redhawks.
Yeah, sure, that's great. And then you got to recruit everybody, you got to promise them stuff.
It was so much fun. Yeah,
great.
So, okay, let's get. I know we've been dancing around and talking about everything else. But we're going to get to it. But this has been a great conversation so far. So on December 30th, 2019, Hasbro purchased E1, the production company. Yeah, hopefully I'm right on that. I think I am. On April 21st, filming started on the new D&D movie. First thing I want to clear up, because I've seen some confusion, is your project that we're going to talk about, the D&D TV show, is it in any way related to the movie at all?
No.
Okay.
It's church and state.
Obviously, other than it just being the same IP, right?
Yeah, of course, it's the same IP, it's the same world, more or less. But the movie that Goldstein and Daly wrote and directed is its own piece. Okay. And the thing that I'm doing is a series, and it's its own piece. At present, I can't really say if there's going to be overlap or not, but for purposes of this conversation, it's definitely church and state.
Gotcha. Have you seen any footage of that? Have you been consulted at all on that?
No. I haven't, although I hear they're thrilled with it internally. So that's great. No surprise. Goldstein and Daly are really talented dudes.
When I was digging around, I saw that at one point, one of your buddies, Dwayne Johnson, was attached to it early on. Is that true? Does he play D&D?
I don't know if he plays. I don't think he does. But Dwayne was interested in it. He likes the property for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were looking at getting involved. I think when it was at Warner Brothers a long time ago, and then it got complicated because there was a whole. I could be wrong about this, but my understanding is there was a big rights battle between Warner Brothers and I think Paramount and somebody else about who had the rights to do it. So it got trapped in a lot of legal red tape for a long time. And I think that because it took so long, and then Dwayne got busy with making Red Notice and other stuff, and Skyscraper and Central and all this other stuff. So he's not involved presently, but never say never.
Michael Lombardo, the president of E1, stated he wanted to branch off into a multi-platform approach for television using scripted and unscripted shows. The project that you're working on, where does that fall into? Is that going to be scripted or unscripted?
I wouldn't know how to make an unscripted D&D show unless you're like, I guess unless you're doing like Critical Role. Or
yeah,
something.
I would imagine that's what that looks like.
This is scripted, my friend. This is it better be, unless you know something I don't know.
No, I kind of thought that was the case. I just felt like
it's going to be a scripted show.
How involved overall are you going to be in the project? Is yours a singular project, or are you going to spearhead like this whole multi-pronged attack that he's talking about? Like am I talking to the Kevin Feige of the D&D world by any chance?
Kevin Feige, there is only one Kevin Feige, and his name is Kevin Feige, and that guy is a deity. What he's done with Marvel will put him on the Mount Rushmore of Hollywood for eternity. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What he's accomplished with a lot of help from a lot of people, but he's just, he's a singular visionary genius. And that's how we have this incredible Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I would never, ever put my name in the same sentence as his. But in terms of my involvement, I've created a flagship show based on the D&D IP. And then I will be involved in how in the other shows that come along to support, augment, and expand the IP on television. And I don't know about elsewhere, but so I will certainly have my fingers in a few pies. But my focus is on this flagship show that hopefully will be the first to land on the psychic beachhead of the audience.
So Amy Pascal then.
Yeah, I guess Amy Pascal. God, I should be so lucky.
So who approached who for the project? Like, how exactly did that work?
Oh, well, it was a bit, I know this is going to kind of a cop-out answer, but it's sort of mutual. Like, I had been interested in the D&D IP for about seven or 8 years. Mm-hmm. I've been chasing it on the feature side, and I was always sort of bridesmaid, never a bride. And I just sort of, gave up. I'm like, I got other stuff to go to do. And then when Hasbro bought E1 and Michael Lombardo came over from Peter Berg's company and previously at HBO, and when Michael was at HBO, he, obviously basically invented what HBO is now with The Sopranos and with Game of Thrones and et cetera. So nobody's more respected than Michael Lombardo in television, the television landscape. And so he came over to E1, and then my representatives, my agents, know how much I love D&D and that something I wanted, and they reached out to E1 and said, "We know you guys are sort of talking to writers and directors about developing in television. Would you guys like to talk to Rawson?" And they said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And we got together. This is late last year, and had a great conversation. And I said, I told them what I think they should do and why, as it relates to D&D on television, D&D TV, and I think they really liked what I had to say. And then I pitched them what I thought the show should be. and they liked that. And then we, each spit in our palm and shook, and and here we are.
The pre-COVID days, Alex.
Yeah,
metaphorically spit in palms. So since it's just me and you here, why don't you just go ahead and give me the pitch, so I can just, I'm listening.
We
just
open in space. No,
nice Spelljammer. Thank you.
No, I certainly can't say anything about that. But I will say that what I hope to achieve in this flagship show is a show that brings in people who aren't just the hardcore D&D players. Like the show has to do two things well. It has to feel like D&D and service the hardcore D&D fans, where they feel like this is what I would want to see. This feels like playing to me. And then it also has to be inviting to people who don't know D&D, who just know it as a title and have a vague memory or fuzzy idea of what it might be. One analogy to this would be J.J. Abrams' Star Trek is the first one, right? So like if you were, I thought that was just a fantastic picture for a bunch of reasons, just in and of itself. But what I was so impressed by was that the way that Star Trek feature worked was, if you were a hardcore Star Trek fan, right? It did everything that you would want it to do, right? Kirk and Spock, the Kobayashi Maru, red shirts get killed. Kirk is sleeping with a green girl. It's all the stuff that you want, right? And if you had never seen an episode of Star Trek, it was just a great space adventure, and you didn't have to have ever seen an episode. And that approach is the same approach that I hope to bring to D&D, and that's more than just Easter eggy stuff, right? Easter egg stuff, quote unquote fan service, that has its place. But I'm talking about delivering a show that for people who still play, who play every weekend, when they watch this television show, it will feel like the thing they love. And for people who don't play, they're just going to love it as its own sword and board fantasy, right? Part that's important about D&D is how to differentiate it from Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, right? These are, which are big, big known, beloved IP in I would say in a similar setting, right? In a similar fantasy setting. But but they're incredible. There are key differences between all three of these properties in these worlds, right? Game of Thrones, on one end of the spectrum, obviously incredible, maybe the best television show ever created, is sort of a darker, adult, sexual, really violent, and critically, the way magic is used is totally different than in Lord of the Rings or D&D. And magic in Game of Thrones is very, very, very rare, and most people don't believe it exists. And when it is used, it's incredibly powerful. And you have to be, and George R.R. Martin himself has said, like, if you have magic in something like Game of Thrones, you have to be, super, super limiting on who has it, how it's used, because it's just an overwhelming narrative device, right? Then you look at, let's say, then we'll go to Dungeons and Dragons, right? Dungeons and Dragons, magic is front and center. Magic is part of everyday life. It is a known thing. It is part of it. It's almost a substitute for science. And it just exists front stage in the limelight, no problems, right? Everybody knows it exists. So a lot of people have it. And it is balanced as it would in the RPG game and in D&D Online. It's balanced in terms of its power with melee and ranged combat, right? So that to me was super exciting, to get to see magic used in a way where it's maybe not quite co-equal, but that it's on almost equal footing with regular sort of martial skill. Not to say that it's underpowered, but etc. And then I guess I would say Lord of the Rings is kind of in between those two in terms of how it's used. Magic is a known thing that exists. It's not spooky. Oh my God, what is that? Everybody knows it exists. but it is relatively rare and confined to fewer people, more than Game of Thrones.
Right, it's less front. It's less front and center. It's there, but it's only certain people use it.
So the other sort of thing that I think is important to remember, about D&D is if you look at Game of Thrones and you look at Lord of the Rings, those are high fantasy, I would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that D&D, while it is a fantasy property, a fantasy world, I would call it more high adventure than high fantasy, and that the fun part about D&D is bringing your party together, right? Your group of friends, and going on a quest, right? We're going to go from here, there and back again, if I can borrow a phrase, right? We're going to start here. We're going to go to there and get a thing that we need, and we're going to come back. And when we do that, we're going to get better at our skills. We're going to find some loot. We're going to get some treasure. We're going to come back and complete the quest or fail the quest, right? And so I think a great D&D show, it wouldn't be soft by any stretch, but it would be high adventure. It would be swashbuckling. It would be Jeopardy, horror a little bit, danger, humor, which is lacking a little bit in Game of Thrones, rightly so.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, so I think that, like, when you look at the D&D, the actual box itself says ages 12 and up, and I think like it would be a mistake to make a Dungeons and Dragons show, at least the first sort of flagship show, too dark,
right?
Because first of all, that's not endemic to the property itself, except we could talk about Ravenloft later.
Oh, please do.
But that this wants to be swashbuckling high adventure, that's fun, fast, a little bit funny. I would say Mandalorian's a great tone to talk, right, in terms of like it's a welcoming world, and it's still exciting and still has characters you care about. And I feel like I've babbled too much now.
No, you're good. How do you balance that? Like, how do you bring the aspect of like players and the party, and then the sort of the built-in failures and situations that happen within a player group? How do you express that on TV? Without like, to me, it would be kind of hard to show that without actually pulling the camera back and having the show be about people playing at a table. Like, how do you bring that aspect of the player to the show without making it straight up about a group of people playing a game and cutting back and forth, that sort of thing?
Yeah. It's a good question. It's not easy to do, but I think it's important to do. And I think it's critical that we define and delineate the differences between playing a game, right? Playing D&D with your buddies, and watching a show, right? Like, these are two totally different entertainment propositions, right? The way in which you play D&D or any role-playing game is not the same way in which you watch a series. And I think that if you try to make watching the series feel like playing the game, you're going to fail. You want the show to feel like the property. You want it to feel like the world of D&D. You don't want it to feel like playing D&D. And that's, I know that's a fine point, but it's a critical one. Also, like, I don't think, like, I wouldn't want to see that. I wouldn't want to see waiting for somebody to go get a bag of Cheetos before they roll, for initiative. Like, come on back, we're all waiting, right? And I wouldn't want to see a player like digging into the player's manual trying to find some arcane rule to best the DM. Like, fuck that. I don't want that.
I could see that being like, if you did that as a limited movie where you took and made that into a movie where you put a whole bunch of the tropes in from a D&D table. You could get away with that as a comedy in like a short span, but I don't think something like that would hold up long term for a series. I think after a while those tropes would wear thin, and then
I think you're talking about a sketch. There's a great, oh my gosh, there is a great short film called RPG. That I'll send you a link to, which I think just does it beautifully. and deals with what it's like to play, or what I wish it was like to play, I guess. Yeah, it's just a fantastic piece. This filmmaker just did such a great job writing and directing it. One of my favorite short films, regardless of its subject matter. Yeah, I don't think the show should or will try to emulate the tabletop experience.
Good.
Right, of rolling die and character sheets and et cetera, et cetera.
Cool.
I do think, though, there are critical elements of the D&D RPG that can inform the show. The most obvious of which, of course, is alignment, right? And how characters in a party with different alignments approach problems differently, and how they clash. And how they resolve. So I think those elements are incredibly important. Obviously, what's great about D&D is it's a massive, deep, rich sandbox, right? And what's cool about role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons specifically is that you get to create your own story within this sandbox, like this treasure trove of story and characters and places. But you ultimately get to make it your own. And so I think that part of it is really what I'm super excited about. And I've, come up with a story that I'm really feel pretty good about. And I hope it delivers, that feeling that you get when you're in your mind playing these games.
Speaking of making it your own, did they give you any parameters on within the IP? Like you mentioned Ravenloft, and obviously there's Greyhawk, Faerun, you have all these settings. Can you drop a hint at all? Is this going to be something directly from your brain, or is this going to be something that's set in one of the existing worlds?
It's going to be set in one of the existing worlds.
Great. So they basically opened up the book and said, do what you want with it.
More or less. I mean, it never started that way. It came from me saying, here's where I would set it, here's why, here's what I would do. You have Forgotten Realms, you've got Greyhawk, OG Greyhawk, you've got Ravenloft, and I don't think I can say which one I picked, but
okay. Don't get yourself in a bind here. I don't want you.
Yeah, I don't think I can yet, but yeah, it's one of those base worlds, I guess, or standard worlds. And but I do think the plan ultimately is to explore all of those worlds in a DDCU, right? Or DDTU, I suppose. Dungeons and Dragons
TV universe. Yeah, DDTU.
DDTVU. How long can we make this, Jason?
We could just
DNDTVU /CU. I don't know.
Oh man, that's a tongueful. D&D TV, yeah. In this universe, the D20U.
Nice, I like it.
Well, thank you. Trademark. Let me just mark that down. Yeah, as you can have it. I'll give it to you for free. No, but that really does present an opportunity with the different settings. You could that would be really cool, and you could get each one could have its own different tone. I mean, I'm obviously not giving you any ideas here, but like Ravenloft, it has its own tone, along with Greyhawk is a lot more nation, the fighting among nations.
Medieval,
yeah,
in its approach, a classic kind of medieval-y setting, and Forgotten Realms, of course, is kind of what I think most people think of as D&D.
It's become the kitchen sink for which is good. But each one carrying its own tone. That's really it's good to hear that it's not going to be sort of generic fantasy world with a D&D logo slapped on it, which I believe is, I know that's a lot of people who I've talked to or have been like, well, I hope it's going to be, it's going to draw on, the existing IP rather than just being generic fantasy setting with Dungeons and Dragons slapped on it. So it's good to hear that. It really is.
No, it's we're drawing on source material. Obviously there are a handful of iconic D&D characters. So that's in our thoughts, I have to say. And and the Wizards of the Coast guys, they're wonderful, and they're an incredible resource. They're really passionate about what they do and about the D&D world, and being custodians and guardians of it. So it's been a great process so far.
Have you had much contact with them directly? Like, have you spoken to anybody at Wizards of the Coast?
No, not directly, but we've been emailing indirectly. So I haven't met them in person yet, but I think there's a plan for me to fly up to Seattle pretty soon and say hi to everybody and start talking about the show. And I certainly, I couldn't go punch for punch with a hardcore D&D gamer who plays every weekend. I know more about D&D than maybe my wife would like to admit, but and I love it myself. So what's been great is not being is being supported from the Wizards of the Coast guys and E1 and Hasbro, I guess, in areas to tell the story that I want to tell. And they go, okay, well, if we did this, you might want to think about this piece or that piece. So, I draw on my own experiences, my own reading, and my own, love of the game. And then if there's some arcana that I don't understand, or if on the map I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque, they'll tell me, and I'll be like, oh gosh, thank you. So I'm trying to make it as connected to the source material and the IP as possible. What it will not be is a generic sword and board fantasy with the D&D logo slapped on. It will not be. I would rather die.
That's great to hear, except for the death part. But you wouldn't be able to make Red Notice too. But hey, look, as far as not being able to go toe to toe with a bunch of D&D people, like I've been doing it since '83, and I couldn't go toe to toe with a lot of people. There's people out there who are really passionate and really dig in, and kudos to them. I don't have enough space to retain everything, but that's why there's wikis and books and
the D&D Beyond, the D&D wiki. I'm a user and an abuser of that for sure. And also, like, I hope the super hardcore fans love the show. But if we try to make a show that only pleased them, it's an untenable sort of business proposition, right? Because that audience is so narrow compared to the world, and what we're trying to do is entertain as many people as possible and have a big tent, but at the same time delivering to people who know and love the game, like you and me, delivering the feeling that you get when you play that game.
I'm sure that just from talking to you, and I'm sure that it's gonna come across great for the old fans, because they're pretty easygoing.
Are they?
I'm really trying to keep a straight face.
Oh God!
I mean, old grognards like me never get mad about anything.
God.
They never. Now, look, I just
give me a chance.
Hey, well, yeah, definitely. I will, and I think anybody I talk to is definitely going to. Oh, you just circling back around for a second before we end. First of all, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate you taking a chance to talk to like a next to nothing YouTuber. So, I
appreciate the interest. It's been a great conversation. Thanks.
It has. I really not saying you have to, but you're more than welcome as this stuff goes on and develops, and you get further into the project. If you ever want to have anything to say, you have a platform anytime you want to. My door is open, and it's rarely locked, and I have no pit bulls or Drake guard dogs, so to speak, and you're always welcome. But
I appreciate that.
No problem. Just one, I have to ask you about Red Notice real quick. That movie had all the twists and turns of a well-crafted D&D campaign. Double crossing is no big reveals. I don't want to spoil it, but was there part of you that dug back into your D&D days for crafting like that the Tale of High Adventure like that, which it really was?
Great question. I mean, I think I don't think like I could point to exactly it, but as we talked about at the beginning, just the idea of developing story and surprise and twists and turns as you're developing your campaign, right? Like learning that skill is certainly something that I applied to Red Notice. And I hope, with any good narrative, surprise is such an important part of it, whether it's in a comedy or a thriller, or a horror film, of course. So I do hope to keep people, if not guessing, at least not incredibly comfortable watching the show. I hope it's something where we can surprise and delight the audience, a couple times an episode if we're lucky.
And when you were working on Red Notice and you look around and you see Black Adam, Wonder Woman, and Deadpool, you ever get that, do you ever get the sense of, wow, I'm directing Black Adam, Wonder Woman, and Deadpool? And did you get a chance to give Ryan Reynolds crap for Green Lantern?
Well, on the first part, yeah, man, it was amazing. I felt I had to pinch myself most of the time, because Dwayne, Gal, and Ryan were all my first choices for that film, and I got all my first choices, which actually in my career I've been really lucky. I've gotten most of my first choices in all of my movies, which is, as I'm told, pretty rare. So it was really really fun to see them all, and they're just so great together. And then the subject of Green Lantern did not come up with Ryan, but he has, as you know, an incredibly good sense of humor about that stuff. If I were to have brought it up, I'm sure he would have taken it well. But most of the time, when you're making a movie of that size, you're just trying to make your day.
Yeah.
You're not, it's not a barbecue, right? You're there to work, and as you know from having worked on a few productions, that it's fun work, but it's hard work, and
it's long work.
Yeah, it's long work. As a writer, there's never a moment where I'm not working. It's 14 hours a day. If we're not shooting the shot, I'm setting up the next shot. If we're not setting up the next shot, I'm prepping the next day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But those guys are great. And so we're hoping to go, I'm actually writing Red Notice 2 and 3 right now. And the plan is to go shoot them simultaneously. Like
a la Back to the Future 2 and 3, and
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Just don't get anybody caught up in a noose and lose one of your main stars.
I don't think there'll be any nooses.
No noose. Any chance that either anybody who you've worked with before, not naming names, may make an appearance in the series, or are all of them pretty much going to be tied up with films and stuff for the foreseeable future? Sounds good. Yeah, sounds great. I love that answer.
I can't say.
No. Oh, and currently.
Smart question, though. I'll say that.
Thank you. I tried to phrase it in a way. Right now, you're currently working on the adaptation of The Division, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
What's you've mentioned before that you're a big gamer, and I've seen some other interviews where you talk about The Division. How did you come to that project? Was that something that you went for, or was that sort of presented to you?
I chased it like a dog after a car. I was so excited. I love The Division. I played the first one. I played the second one. I played every Tuesday night with 3 other of my buddies. I stood in line at E3 for 3 hours just in 2014 just to get a glimpse of it. I've loved this game, in my bones since it came out. Mm-hmm. And so when Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain, attached to produce and star, and David Leitch was going to direct it, I was super bummed that I wasn't going to get a chance to, but also happy that someone like David Leitch was going to make it with those two incredible actors. And then David had to go make another movie. He made Bullet Train with Brad Pitt, and so they were looking for a director, and I jumped at the chance and said, here's what I would do, and here's why. And then we've been developing the script, and so far so good.
Great. And when is that? And that's going to be on Netflix. Any idea when that's going to? What are you shooting for?
We're still working out actor schedules and getting the script in the right shape, and so there's no current release date yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Rawson, I appreciate you being here with me today. I only have two more questions, and then I'll let you go because I know you're a busy man. Is any of your Rift script going to make it into the D&D show?
I can't even believe, that I have a riff script. Like this is, I feel like I'm inside the actor's studio. You have all of this crazy information, Jason.
It's a DM's job to know everything, sir.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, the script that I wrote for Riffs is the best script that I've ever written to this day. I wrote it for Jerry Bruckheimer and Disney about 12 years ago now. And I'm super, super proud of it. And it's unfortunately sort of stuck in the vault at Disney with a bunch of money against it, and I don't think it'll ever see the light of day. Not, I didn't get paid a bunch of money, but everybody before and after me, I suppose, did. I basically wrote it for free because I was so excited. It's actually, I think I would say, the biggest regret of my career that I haven't been able to get that movie made. So I would say, sadly, nothing from the Riffs screenplay will be in the Dungeons and Dragons show. But I do stare at my ceiling at night, hoping against hope, wishing and cursing my luck that it's so under lock and key.
Yeah. One more thing, is there anything right now that you want to sort of say to anybody who may be seeing this and anybody who may just now be finding out that there's going to be a D&D TV show? Any last closing thoughts?
I think I've said everything that I need to say, but
yeah.
I guess I would say that I hope when you see the show that you give it a chance, and that it delivers the feeling that you have when you play the game, just like the feeling that I had when I played the game. So I hope to not let the community down.
Yeah. Mr. Thurber, thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to seeing everything that's coming down the pike from you, and hopefully I will talk to you sometime soon.
I hope so, Jason. This has been a real pleasure. Let's do it again soon.
Yes, sir. Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Our guest tonight is a graduate of Union College, where he founded the visual art. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. What'd you guys think? Man, that was a pretty darn decent interview that I had. Thank you guys for coming out and watching it tonight. I thought it was super informative. Mr. Thurber was a consummate gentleman and a fantastic interview. I hope you all enjoyed it. Learned a lot. I think that the D&D series is in fantastic hands. I'm super excited. Yeah, and the nice thing is, he said he'd like to come back at some point. So, like I told him, a door is always open. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you the 24-hour live stream is coming up April 15th and 16th. If you guys enjoy this stream, please like it, subscribe to both the channels, and share this out so as many people can see it as possible. I'm probably going to just bring him in on a Monday. I'd offer to. If he wanted to come, I'd bring him on. I'll bring him in. So anyway, like this stream, share it to your friends, get it out there. And I'm going to do a small recap video on it. We're going to get back to the lab, and I'm going to release the Ghost Cat video soon. Thank you all for coming out and hanging out with me tonight. Give a warm round of applause to Mr. Thurber. And remember, in the game of life, may you always roll with advantage, and I will catch every single last one of you in the next video. Bye-bye now.